Good morning, good Shabbos, and Shabbat Shalom. Welcome to our Shabbat morning Torah study. It is most appropriate on Shabbat, no matter how far away we are in real life, that we be able to connect, if only virtually. I hope this Torah study session will provide something of what we have offered on Shabbat morning at Temple Beth Israel. One of the more positive things about this congregation, when I first heard the details of how it scheduled its week, is the fact that we have had Shabbat morning services. Most congregations, even with 1,000 families, don't have a Shabbat morning service unless there's a bar bat mitzvah. This is what makes our place very, very special. Let me begin with something from the Shabbat morning liturgy. Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu ve'imotenu retzei b'mnochatenu kadshenu b'mitzvotecha v'tenhakenu b'toratecha sabenu mituvecha v'samchenu b'shuatecha v'taher libenu la'ovdecha be'emet v'hanchilenu Adonai Eloheinu be'ahava uvratzon Shabbat kodshecha v'yanuchu v'Yisrael mekadesh shmecha baruch atah Adonai mekadesh ha-Shabbat. Our God and God of our ancestors, be pleased with our rest, sanctify us with your mitzvot, and grant us a share in your Torah. Satisfy us with your goodness, gladden us with your salvation, purify our hearts to serve you in truth. In your gracious love, eternal one, our God, grant your holy Sabbath a heritage for us. May Israel, who sanctifies your name, rest on Shabbat. Praised are you, eternal one, who sanctifies Shabbat. I am going to try to relate this week's Torah reading, the fact that we have just completed the celebration of Passover, and our current situation with coronavirus in my comments this morning. Many people summarize Pesach as a festival of freedom. And right now, we are hearing, unfortunately, people complaining that their freedoms are being taken away from them because the bars and the beaches and other such places are closed. From a really Jewish perspective, Pesach is not simply a celebration of freedom. Of course, we all want to be free, and we find universal meaning in it. But when we ask, "Let my people go," the sentence doesn't end there. It's "let my people go," using God's words, "that they may serve me." Israel left Egypt not just to leave Egypt, not just to be liberated from slavery, but on their way to Sinai to receive the Torah, and then to the land of Israel. It is far more specifically Jewish than just the idea of freedom, though we have bought into the idea, and rightly so, that we can't be truly free until all people are free. Now let me give you an example of what going to Sinai meant to our ancestors. We read in this week's Torah reading, in the 11th chapter of Leviticus, and there's something very, very similar in the 14th chapter of Deuteronomy, the dietary laws. The dietary laws restrict our freedom. You all had a sense of this, I almost said a taste of this, pun intended, on Passover, where we weren't supposed to eat bread. our eating habits are restricted. We could extend this and say that for health reasons, many of us should not eat certain kinds of food, should reduce the amount of salt, for example. A very, very simple example. We don't have complete freedom to do whatever we want, and if we had that freedom, it would be disastrous for our health. Now, looking at the same issue from a different perspective. We are individuals. We want to do whatever we want. We want to define ourselves however we like to see ourselves. I like that idea. I celebrate it. However, there is a greater sense of community. From a truly traditional Jewish perspective, it's not just a matter of freedom, but a matter of obligation. We have an obligation to those around us, to our family, to our community, to the Jewish people, to the entire world. If we are ill, we have an obligation not to spread those germs to anyone else. We must be super cautious at these times. Now, I know there are people who are complaining. It is a selfish complaint. We all have to restrict what we do to help others. And there is something in the sense of obligation that we find in the Torah that trains us in this. Yes, there are all kinds of things that may sound appealing and interesting, but we don't do them simply because they are wrong. We're supposed to be happy on Shabbat. Technically speaking, we don't mourn on Shabbat. For those people who are sitting Shiva, they get up from Shiva on Shabbat. They may still be sad, but the rituals of Shiva are different. Now here, even getting up from Shiva this year is different, because getting up from Shiva means you can get out of your house. You can be with the rest of the community. We can't be with our community. We have to think of an imagined community. Now, imagined community is a term that's used in a different way by certain historians who looked at the beginning of nationalism. And I mean nationalism in the positive sense, not where nationalism equals hate, but nationalism is an identity. I have an identity, I have an affinity, I have a closeness with people who are like me. They are part of my imagined community, even if I haven't met them before. That is why sometimes when I meet people for the first time, and sometimes it's at a service, sometimes tragically at a funeral, sometimes in happy situations at a wedding, and I've never met them before, but we have enough of a common history and a common heritage that we can connect very easily. That imagined community started off being spread as an idea through newspapers, through publications. Now we have the technology that we are using right now. This technology enables us to make our community larger. And we sincerely hope that those of you who, for sake of argument, would never have considered, for whatever reason, good or bad, and who even knows, who would never have considered coming to one of our Shabbat morning services, would now tune in, let me use that expression. It doesn't have to be live. It's on Facebook. You can find it on YouTube. Later today, next week, what have you, and join and be part of our larger community. We used to write letters. Now we send emails. We can connect through the phone. We can connect through this new thing called Zoom, which we're slowly learning how to operate. Our ancestors got together on Shabbat morning, and the centerpiece of the Shabbat morning service, as I have always seen it, has been the public reading of the Torah. For many people, it's the pageantry that's most significant, understandably so. There are required stages of how the scroll is taken out of the ark, how it is paraded around the congregation, taking the Torah into the congregation, not keeping it away from the congregation. And when people would take the fringes of their tallis and kiss, it's not just a simple act. It involves more than that. It's almost like signing on to the Torah itself. Let me give you an example. Let's say, for sake of argument, a person does not know how to read and write. On legal documents, a person would make a mark, a circle, an X, or whatever it was, and a witness would say, this is his or her mark. In the ancient world, when people didn't write on paper, but made impressions on clay tablets, oftentimes your signature would be taking the fringes on your garments, and not just Jews did this, and make an impression. When we touch the Torah scroll, I see it. When our fringes touch the Torah scroll, I see it as signing on. We're being part of this. We are accepting all these rules. If you want to know where this idea comes from and how I learned about it, Samuel Noah Kramer's book on the Sumerians, which I read decades and decades ago, that idea impressed itself on my mind. And again, a pun, a play on words, impress. As we impress the fringes on the clay tablets, so we impress ourselves on the Torah and have the Torah impress itself on us. So nobody said it was going to be easy. We have rules and regulations. We have things that are required, things that are prohibited. That's how we get through life. We aren't just individuals who want to say, I want to do my own thing. Now, of course we want to do our own thing, and I've said that myself. Leave me alone. I don't want to be bothered with anybody else. But still, we have obligations to others. So those who are protesting here and elsewhere that their freedoms are being curtailed, without getting into the whole hypocrisy that they would curtail other freedoms of other people, that's another story completely. Let us hope that the days and the weeks ahead will be days when we will be freer, when we will be able to lessen some of the restrictions. And sometimes, as we all know, we have to go without in order to have something better in the future. We save up our money, we don't splurge all the time, so we can be more secure in the future, or make just a better immediate future. We don't overdo it with our food if we are sensible. We make sure we follow the strict requirements of what our doctor tells us to do with our prescriptions. We don't want to say, I want my complete freedom, I'm not taking any medicine or looking at the clock to see when I have to take the next pill. We do this to keep ourselves alive, and we do it to keep our community alive. I want to end on an upbeat note, and I hope I will, but I can't help but think at this time of how many people we know who have died of the coronavirus. 2 members of our congregation. Other people have been infected. Immediate family members, friends. a colleague of mine in England, and I just discovered this morning that a close friend of mine that I knew very, very well some decades ago. Given the advantages of modern technology, I was able to do something even though my freedom was restricted. I could not have attended the funeral or the burial. Yes, it's far away, but that's irrelevant. I could not have attended. But given technology, I did attend on Zoom, which was then recorded and posted on YouTube. My friend's wife spoke. She ended her presentation with a quotation from the 26th chapter of the book of Isaiah. Very relevant because my friend's name was Isaiah. Now, in context, and then I'm going to take it out of context and put it in its modern idiom, God is punishing the people for their misdeeds. Now, we're not viewing any of this as punishment. So we're re-understanding it, re-translating it. Isaiah 26:20. I'll read in English. Go, my people, enter your chambers and lock your doors behind you. Quarantine. Go, my people, enter your chambers and lock your doors behind you. Hide but a little moment until the indignation, the anger passes. Now that last expression we are going to read and translate differently, and it's not 2020, it's not 2020 understanding. Ad ya'avor za'am in modern Hebrew means till the storm blows over, until the danger is past. So reading this, not in the context of biblical Hebrew, but in terms of the expression in modern Hebrew, which uses so many biblical expressions in a modern sense. We quarantine ourselves, we take care of ourselves, hopefully, just for a little while, until the danger passes. I look out the window and the sun is shining. It looks like a beautiful day. May we continue to have beautiful days that uplift us, even in our sadness and our grief, as we look forward to a better future. And we all know sometimes, just because you think you're feeling better, you still have to take care. Let me give you an example from medical science, which we've all experienced. We get a prescription for an antibiotic, and they tell you to take it for, let's say, 10 days. And they make it very clear on the label, just because you feel better after 2 or 3 days doesn't mean you have to stop taking it. You go the whole period of time that is required. May we have that fortitude to make a little sacrifice for a big sacrifice. For our little sacrifice by staying at home and restricting our activities and not going to the bars and not going to the beaches can save lives. May we be inspired to take upon ourselves that obligation as our ancestors took on all kinds of other obligations for the higher goal of increasing health and life. I hope this Shabbat is a good Shabbat for all of you. Now, before I conclude, it is only appropriate to pause for a moment to pray for those members of our family and for those members of the congregation and people we know who aren't doing well at this time. I am going to read the names of people who are on our Mishaberach list, which unfortunately is getting longer. And then we are going to remember those of our family and friends who are no longer with us. We pray for the speedy recovery of Jennifer Shaw, Ruth Pogorski, Alana Gordon, George Bardos, Martin Ross, Peter Roth, Merrill Goldman, Andrew Lerman, Eileen Egan, Marvin Black, Maggie Brenner, Joshua Harand, Ruth Engman, Dorothy Jacobson, Lee Einstein, Ralph Einstein, Katie Pastor, Trudy Caruso, Zachary Pastor, Douglas Baker, Sherry and Danny Bear. And then we pause for a moment and all of us, either silently or out loud, mention any other names that need to be mentioned at this time. May the Eternal One grant a refuah shlema, a complete recovery, to everyone who is ill and suffering at this time. We also remember those who are no longer with us. Morton Skirball, Earl Gordon, Everett Barrett, Sheldon Novitsky, Teresa Blumberg, Stanley Greisman, Beverly Simon, Jerry Rosenberg, Isaiah Cooperstein. Let me say the Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah. Be'alma divrach cherutei v'yamlich malchutei. B'chayechon u'v'yomechon v'chayedecho Beit Yisrael. B'gala u'v'isman kariv v'imru Amen. Yehei shmei Rabba mevarach le'olam u'lalmei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitolal shmei dekudsha brichu. Le'ela min kol berchata v'shirata tushbachata v'nechamata damiran v'alma v'imru Amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shamaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen. Oseh shalom b'imromav Huyaseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen. May the source of peace grant peace unto those who mourn, and comfort the bereaved among us, and let us all say Amen. We need to end on a positive note, on the positive note that let us pause and relax as we're supposed to do on Shabbat. Let us hope that by staying away from people, we are making it possible to spend more time with people. And let us look forward to that day, and we're thinking about it and planning it, when all of us will be able to be back in our beautiful building on Longboat Key and have a special service and a special celebration that we are back again together once all this is over. Good Shabbos, Shabbat Shalom.